Basically, we had to get a ton more storage because I was maxing it out. And I think a lot of people don't understand like how critical it is to have like proper data management in place.
There's no secret sauce to social media performing, right? Like I can't tell you, hey, I guarantee if you make this video, you'll go viral, you'll get a million views.
Right.
If I tell you that, I'm not being truthful.
Because my dad always told me, he's like, hey, whatever you want to do, I will support you. Because my dad wanted to be like a musician. My grandpa basically told him like, no, you're never gonna be a musician. I'm not buying you a guitar. I remember like my dad telling me, he's like, that was like the moment where I was like, yeah, I need to leave.
Potato Company and all the wealthy brands, there's a mission that we're on, all right? And part of that mission is really to enrich communities.
What's going on, guys? I'm here with Justin Berry, wealthy creator. So happy to have this conversation with you, get to sit down and, kind of just get to know each other a little bit, have a candid conversation, and, just dive deeper a little bit into what it is that we do, right?
Oh, man, appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so, when we were on the call probably like a month ago, we were talking about like content strategy and how we've been working on building all of our social media platforms up. I mean, it took us a little bit to get started because I think it was a little bit of an ambitious project that we took on initially with posting twice a day on 7 different platforms on 2 different accounts.
Yeah.
Took a little while to set up, but in the recording when I was listening on my drive over here, we had talked about like, hey, it's kind of hard to decide what it is to do right now because we weren't posting at that time. But since then, we've been posting. It's been, I think that was August 16th. Mm-hmm. It's now like September 24th.
Yep, 27th.
27th?
Yep, 28th.
Oh, jeez.
This what happens when you're busy, right? All the days start to run together.
It all just blends together. I lost track of time, but regardless of scope, it's been over a month since we've been posting every single day. I think we started with 4, the big 4, yep. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And then we moved into the other 3 platforms. And it's been really interesting to see how all the different like platforms kind of get different types of feedback, I think my stepdad DM'd me on LinkedIn. But my stepdad, he's like heavy into marketing. Like he runs like a big marketing agency in Buffalo. Okay. And he messaged me. He's like, hey, you gotta like switch up your content strategy on here a little bit. I think I can help you. Let's set up a meeting basically. Yeah. To kind of help me, walk me through the LinkedIn strategy a little bit, which, I kind of told him like, look, I totally agree with you. Like we could do this a lot better, but at the same time, like the strategy that we're rolling with is just like volume, mm-hmm. right? Like just twice a day, every single platform, and just getting the videos out there. And, one thing that I was curious about was like, do you think that the volume strategy works for everybody? Do you think it works for only specific types of people, or should you take a more calibrated approach on each platform?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say first, there's no secret sauce to social media performance, right? Like, yes, there's rules and things that you can apply as far as strategy when it's concerning marketing and trying to monetize your content, but there's no secret sauce to like the actual social media, right? Like I can't tell you, hey, I guarantee if you make this video, you'll go viral, you'll get a million views. Right. If I tell you that, I'm not being truthful, right? And I'm selling you a dream that's just not real, right? But I can tell you that the only cheat code is consistency, right? Consistency is the only thing that will guarantee you some results, right? Now, whether those results are extremely beneficial or, you're kind of slow burning this thing, but that can vary, but I can guarantee you that if you are consistent, you will see some results. And I want to go back to what you said too about the different platforms, right? Because there are different strategies for different platforms.
Oh, absolutely.
At Wealthy Creator, Pineda Media, we teach the big 4, right? Like that's what we focus on because we know those 4 are locations that you will and really kind of quickly be able to monetize if you do everything that's necessary. But when it comes to some of these other ones, especially places like LinkedIn, there
Mm-hmm.
are specifics to how you should go about it. So your
Right.
step, like he's probably 100% right
Right.
about it, right? Like, and I even had some consulting done for me when it came to Ryan Pineda's LinkedIn,
Okay.
just about how to post,
That's
right?
interesting.
Like learning how to
Yeah.
transcribe the videos and make sure that there's some text that comes with, like all those things are a part of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I do have the opportunity with someone, I do teach it. We just don't see it that often
Right.
for individuals. But I say all that to say, like, again, there's no secret to this, right? Like, you have to stay consistent to be able to be sure that you have some type of results. So yeah, it was really ambitious though early on, right? It was like, hey, I'm already doing this type of content, so I know I can get to 2 posts a day, right?
Yep.
And we want people to come in with that energy, right? With that type of motivation.
Absolutely.
Because I know that if you're saying that you want to do 2, whenever that burnout comes or whenever that feeling of like, oh man, this is a lot comes or I can't
yeah.
really manage it, I know you will still be willing to do 1. Right, and then 1 a day will get you to a great start to kind of show you how to be most efficient with how you create.
Absolutely. And I'll say that like my ambition, I guess, came from a like really basic problem actually that I had to solve early on, and that was like basically we had our OneDrive for the business was like maxed out on like storage space. Like I completely maxed it out, which was causing problems because like the OneDrive, if you send like a link to an invoice to the customer, it's like backed up on the OneDrive. So if it's maxed out on space,
That's it.
customers can't even open up the links, and like it causes so many problems.
Yeah.
Like in so many different ways. Like couldn't even send messages on like Microsoft Teams with like attachments. It was such a big problem. So what we ended up doing was we had to create like a server, basically a networked attached server, a NAS for short, right? And so I basically configured and bought a Synology NAS that's a 6-base server. It's got six 16 terabyte hard drives with 2 terabyte SSDs in
Okay.
it. So it's 100 terabytes in total. And it utilizes like RAID, where it backs up onto multiple hard drives,
Right.
different types. I'm not gonna get into that stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
basically, we had to get a ton more storage because I was maxing it out, and then my problem became speed as far as like uploading videos. And I think a lot of people don't understand like how critical it is to have like proper data management in place when it comes to like implementing a social media strategy, right? Like I think a lot of guys think that it's kind of just like, let me save it onto my phone and that'll be fine. But in reality, I think if you're trying to post at a high scale like that, you have to have these implements in place with extra space on your server, wherever that may be. A lot of people use like Google Drive or OneDrive, all of the Dropbox.
Yeah.
But the problem with those is that they're kind of slow, right? And you also don't own any of that stuff. So,
Right.
Unlikely it happens, but if Microsoft were to get hacked or something like that, or Google Drive were to get hacked and you lost all your stuff, like that could be a huge detriment to somebody's business. So I like the idea of owning my own server, and having things also backed up on the cloud, have for redundancy basically.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, we're going through it right now.
Yeah.
Right. So like, and just to give it a little backstory, the Ryan Pineda Show was the company that I was contracted to be, over.
Okay.
All right. And then as we rebranded to The Wealthy Way, and then we start rebranding other companies and bringing on new companies, I kind of inherited all these other companies, right? So now we don't just do content for Ryan Pineda, we do content for Ryan Pineda and all of the companies. So yeah, data has been...
That's crazy, dude. I bet you guys have so much, like literally so much data stored.
So it's just nonstop. Like every day, it's a new collection of videos coming through, new collection of pieces coming through, and then we host these events that is even more footage. I mean, by the time we're done with WealthCon, I'll have another 2-3 terabytes of video, right, to have to deal with. But one thing, like you're saying, like the storage thing is always going to be an issue when you're coming, you're getting that much in. But it's also we're in talks right now with a few companies about servers because we have now graduated into that point. Google Drive worked for us fine. Yeah. We just bought the largest amount of storage, and then we bought some shared drives through Google so that we can kind of keep collecting our data there.
I bet can you tell me how much you guys spend on that? Like if you can, or can you give me like a ballpark?
I mean,
well, first of all,
people
how
can
much-
check it. It's. I mean,
Okay,
you're
yeah.
talking about 20 terabytes per drive,
Okay.
and we have 4 of them.
Okay, so 80 terabytes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we've gone through 80 terabytes in 3 years, and we're kind of finishing out our last
Wow,
20 now.
that's cool.
So what I mean, like it's been quite a bit.
That's insane. 80 terabytes is a ton of storage.
It's so much, and it's like we don't get rid of it because it always can be recalled, always can be reused, and it's one of those things where you want to keep this footage because 10 years from now, when the company is $1 billion company and we're doing everything at the highest of levels, we want to be able to look back and see some of this
Yeah,
stuff and
absolutely.
laugh at how bad our videos were, right? So I totally understand what you mean, but I think what people need to hear too is that your content structure should be set up like your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so what
Absolutely.
we got into that. I was with them a year before we decided to kind of take it there. And so what we decided to do was look at what a production company has, every role, every breakdown, what responsibilities are, and then figure out what we needed to implement on our side. So we just pulled, right? We need a producer. Yeah, let's get a producer. Do we need a director? I don't know. It's YouTube, so it's kind of like the producer, the shooter is the director. Maybe not. Do we need videographers? Yes. Do we need photographers? Yes. Do we need content managers? Content manager kind of acts as like the distributor, right? Like, so yeah, we need a content. Like, that's how we kind of structured it. And then every role just kind of became that ladder that you see when you break down the structure. And so it's no different the way you do your content, versus how you do your business. And so when you think of yourself like, oh man, I'm sending invoices and people can't pay them because of a storage issue, it's no different, right? Like, all right, I need more storage for that. I need more storage for this. I need to kind of structure everything based on, what I know as proper business. And when you do that, though, you'll see, like, it accelerates the growth, right? Like,
yeah.
you're able to scale
1000%.
much faster when you know what positions need to be filled and what needs to be done to help the business, for sure.
What do you look for whenever you're what do you look for in a good videographer, let's say?
Oh man! So as a a videographer myself and like really understanding it, I just believe that certain people have an eye for what it is you're looking for, right? Like, so when I look at what we're doing, whether it be events, real estate, YouTube videos, like dynamic video, there's a certain eye that an individual needs to have to be able to accomplish what we're doing. And I need to be able to see that you have that before I ever even take the chance on hiring you on. And by eye, what I mean is there's composition, understanding like how you use rule of thirds in certain settings. I should be able to take you into a $10 million house, leave you there, and know that you're going to get the fireplace. Know that you're going to get the fountain that's in the backyard. Know that you're going to film the pool and the view and making sure that, like I should know that you have the eye and knack for what needs to get accomplished. And then it's just work ethic, right? Like, how organized are you? How much time after hours are you willing to put in, to make sure that we accomplish what we're trying to accomplish? Because I think for us specifically, videographers a lot of times are creatives, right? And so they kind of operate at their own pace, their own schedule. They have that job because they want to be able to move as a boss themselves, right? In our situation, it's not quite like that necessarily, right? Like, yeah, you are a boss, right? No, 1,000%. I want you to own what it is that you're doing, and the responsibilities that you have. But there is also, you also have a client, and your duties are to make sure that the client is pleased. And so a lot of times it's like, all right, how hard are you going to work towards this, right? And do you want to be the best?
Yeah, that's like I feel like just in any job really,
Yeah.
like having that drive, the tenacity to be just like take it a step above, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially like in today's marketplace, like with like workers and hiring. We've hired and fired a lot of people, and we've also retained a lot of really solid people. But we find it, I find it that it's like, I feel like the overall marketplace is becoming more competitive. I think there's more people that are stepping up, more people that are showing up more qualified, having, all the qualifications in place, but that still doesn't mean that they're going to show up and put in that extra effort and really, chip into the brand and building what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because I want to add to chipping into the brand. Right, Potato Company and all the wealthy brands, there's a mission that we're on, right? And part of that mission is really to enrich communities, right? Like, we don't we're not gatekeepers of what we're trying to do.
Right,
All right.
exactly.
Like we share every single piece of information that comes in. All right. If I find out something new on Instagram today that's gonna work for your content, I'm gonna share it. Like I'm not like, hey man, I don't know, like I got 2 competitors here, let me make sure.
Yeah.
No. Like we want to really do that because we know that if you win, you're gonna improve somebody else's life and help to enrich another community. And so we need individuals that are like, I'm looking for individuals that will buy into that, right? Like really have faith that you can win at this and that the mission is there for you to kind of partake in. Because if you don't, then you'll never buy into what we're trying to do anyway.
It's
and you're
cancer.
just a
It's
you're just a
literally
cancer.
cancer. Yeah,
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like you're going to hurt us more than you could ever help us, no matter how talented you are.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the mindset, the attitude, the day to day,
Yeah.
just overall having like a positive attitude and really thinking forward as far as like what can I do to help the brand move forward? How can I help the people that we're trying to help?
Yeah.
I think that's so important too.
Yeah, and I just believe too that like even when I joined on early, I came on as an editor. So
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was he was getting ready to start filming his podcast. And he was like, he put a post out and he's like, I'm looking for, an editor to do the podcast. And there's more, elements to the story I can give it to you if you want. But like, I came in, I knew I wasn't going to stay an editor.
Right.
Right. Like I had no plans of just being an editor. Like I knew I could offer so much more, it's about getting in the door.
Right.
And I think that when individuals come in with just one plan of I'm going to go put my head down, do this job and go home, you're not really buying into what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
You're really there for whatever gain that you get out of it, and then that shows, right? Like it's very clear who comes to collect the check.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
It's very clear. It's easy to see.
You don't have to say anything. We already know.
We know it.
Yeah.
We know it. And so when I see individuals that are going to get after it, they're going to try new things. They're going to offer up, whether it's bad advice or not. It's okay, right? Like I'm okay with you being wrong.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want you to be wrong twice.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with you being wrong because you're making an attempt at something that may actually work, right? And so it's like, you got to take some L's, but you got to, you can't even offer anything if you don't put yourself out there and be vulnerable in that sense. But yeah, man, like it's one of those things, like really buying into anybody's brand, right? Like it is something that was necessary to really scale at large.
Absolutely. And I think that's interesting that you said that you DM'd him, or like I don't know, it sounded like it was a DM or a post or something that you responded to, but you were like, I know there's so much opportunity here. I know that if I work hard, I'm not gonna just be an editor here. Like I will do these things that will push the brand forward and open doors for myself and other people that come in behind me. And that's so cool that you had that foresight and that you were smart enough to like capitalize on that opportunity, and look where you're at now, man.
No, man, it's been great. It's been great. It's you're gonna get opportunities. Everybody's gonna get opportunities, right? Like it just is what it is. Like if you're listening to this or you're watching this and you believe that you're just having bad luck, like you don't get the opportunities that you see other people doing. Because I don't consider myself like the best videographer, the best editor, right? Like there's people that I sit next to every day that are better than me. I just think when it comes to solving problems, when it comes to like making an attempt and putting the effort in, I'm not gonna be outworked. All right, I just won't allow it to happen.
Exactly.
And that background comes from me playing ball, but like I implement it every day, right? Like I'm intentionally here first. All right, like I want you to see me when I walk in, because when you thought you were up early, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna see me. But it's those are all things that I just learned through the sports. And so I apply it, right? Like it wasn't a hard thing for me to reach out to him because I didn't know him, right? I had been in the city, so I moved here in 2018. And he was already he was established as like an investor, right? He wasn't massive on social media yet, but he was established as an investor. I had never seen anything he posted before. And he was already posting twice a day at that point, right? Just regular basic reels and YouTube videos. And so I remember saying to myself, I don't know who this guy is, right? Not really. Like I'm not going to judge him off of what I'm seeing on social media, because in my mind, I was like, he's playing a part. Right? Like, it was so like overproduced to me that I was like, okay, this can't really be him, right?
Were you like, I can make better videos for him.
Yeah,
You-
1,000%.
Okay,
Like
that's cool.
I can see like where production needed help.
Gotcha,
Right,
okay.
but I didn't know what he was working with either, because up until that point, we only knew influencers as having done it themselves. Like maybe one videographer, but it was really them doing everything.
Like vlogging style.
Yeah,
I
it
think
wasn't
that was
like
really
my
big.
position didn't exist 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
All right, it just wasn't a thing. So it was like they were doing it themselves, and some of the stuff I can tell, like he was just sitting in his living room making videos.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured it was a lot of it was him, and I was like, he can use help here.
Use a little help, yeah.
All right, and so one of my friends, Omar El Takori, who's with Think Media, consulted him when he was trying to build out the studio, the original studio upstairs. And me and him had a conversation. We had been having conversations. I was trying to get out of my 9 to 5 and was like, I'm trying to do this full time. And he asked me, he was like, how much you want to make? And me, I'm like, I think I said like $1,000 more than what I was making in my 9 to 5. Like it was something stupid, but I really had never thought about that. And so when I said it, like he walks away, and then I'm like, come here, bro. Like you ain't got to ask me that and then just walk away. Like, do you got something for me or what? And he was like, no, I think you're limiting what God could do for you. And so that one hit me because I was like, all right. Like he wasn't really asking me for a number. He was more or less asking me, what do I believe can happen, right? And so later that week, we had did a 10-day fast, and on day 10, he had sent me a screenshot of Ryan's post about needing an editor. And so
Interesting.
I DM'd him, and immediately he called me. And he was like, yeah, I heard about you already. And I was like, what? And so that's kind of how we kind of connected, and through the local church, pretty much, we kind of developed that friendship. And then, as I came in as an editor, I knew right away, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, but I'm like, I know there's going to be more opportunity
Right,
here,
yeah.
especially because he was growing so fast. All right, we were watching the growth of his channels go, like, it was increasing by the thousands, by the hour
That had to
at
have been
that point.
such a rush to like see all that.
It was
that
crazy.
happening.
It was
Yeah,
crazy, man.
that's so sick. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was cool.
That's awesome. So you said you moved here to Vegas in 2018.
Yep.
Where were you at before then?
Originally from Chicago, born and raised.
Okay.
Yeah, south side of Chicago, south suburbs is where our people are now. Yeah, man, I truly didn't. I moved here because it was just time for a change. I had finished up college.
Okay.
And my wife had just finished up. We had gotten married. So, like, I was like, yeah, we're going to get married. We already knew we were going to be together. But I was like, she gets to go to school for free because I worked at the university.
Oh, okay.
So free degree, like
beautiful.
cashed out. Yeah, bro. Like that was a God's plan all the time. But once she finished, I was like, all right, look, you got a 1-year-old. He's about to turn 1. I was like, if we don't go now, we're never going.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good
just
time to
what it
move.
is, right? Like once he gets attached to the family, and once he's in school and with his friends, I'm like, I'm not gonna uproot everything and try to go chase a dream. Then
Yeah,
I was like,
stuff.
so now is the time. And so 2018, we moved out, found a good church family, got connected, got in community, and then everything just went up from there.
That's interesting. So growing up in Chicago, you said you played ball, like football, basketball.
Basketball. Yeah.
What was your position?
So I played between the 1 and 2. I was point guard, shooting guard, most teams. Obviously I was the bigger kid up until freshman year, and then everybody kind of shot up on me. So I moved to the 1 and 2. Played that in college as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was. I mean, basketball taught me so much in the city because it's Chicago, right?
Yeah,
like
that's-
it's grimy, and my class was like Derrick Rose, Evan Turner. Like it was like all the top,
the heavy hitters,
in the
yeah.
country at that point. So the competitiveness was week to week, day to day, almost whenever you played.
Oh, absolutely.
Play sports.
I think like I grew up a little bit in like North Carolina, but also in Long Island. That's where like my family
Yeah,
is
so
from.
yeah.
And I was a wrestler in high school, so I didn't play basketball, but my cousin was a basketball player.
Okay.
And we would always go to like the parks and play basketball, and like, dude, like
It's intense.
stuff would go down on the basketball court.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine Chicago, like how
yeah.
that was too. So, like you were talking about how like you learned all of the discipline, the work ethic from playing basketball, and you've applied it to business, and it's almost like unbelievable how like parallel the actual like skill set is, right?
It's no different, bro. Like it's really no different. And I'll say this: in these rooms that I'm in now, right? Like I get to be around top businessmen in the industry, and I can sense who the shark is. I can sense who the grimiest person is in the room because I've seen it so much, like, you know, being around. Like, there was, like, I remember playing younger in certain parks. Like, we would go out to Cole Park and play, right? And it'd be lined up. People would be lined up. And I knew when the coach was like, all right, get to the van. Like, you knew that this wasn't getting ready to end well for the night, right? That same sense of like, all right, this person over there is plotting something. I can see it. Like, I literally see it, right? And it's funny because you don't think of it as two, like, you think of it like it's two different worlds, but it's not. Anybody with malintention has malintention no matter what, you know, case they're in, what situation they're in. And so being in that taught me, like, pay close attention, be more observant. Like, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You don't always have to be the center of attention. Right. Sometimes it's good to kind of fall back and kind of watch and see what's going on around you. And that's really how I ended up, you know, kind of behind the camera in the position I'm in now. Is like, I don't need to try to impress Ryan to get a position. Like, that was not my case when I came in the door. I saw opportunity because I saw how fast he was growing. And I knew that if I totally bought in and got, you know, and really worked worked the way I knew how to, I knew that I would have an opportunity to kind of scale up and be in a position, you know, to run things. And so in that, I knew, like, man, I've seen this before, right? Like, this is actually more comfortable to me than some other things, right? Like, college was so sweet for me because it was like, you know, you're playing with the best players from wherever they're from, but two, no matter what, this town has nothing else, so they're gonna support you, right? Like, you're getting the love no matter what. It wasn't necessarily I had to look out for everything. Like, it was way more comfortable. But in business, things change. And you start to see that same type of setting. Like, okay, yeah, he's here for an opportunity, right? Like, and if you don't work hard, that opportunity that you waiting on or that you wanting is gonna be gone. It's gonna go to that person. So that goes back to me talking about, you know, being willing to outwork anybody that comes through.
Are you gonna? You said you have a child, like is it a son or?
Yeah, I got two sons, 6 and he'll be 3 in November.
Okay, so you got a little like. Little son rivalry probably going on there in a couple of years. Are you gonna push your kids to play sports or play basketball specifically?
That's a great question. In all honesty, what I'm gonna do for my kids is I'm going to support whatever they're good at. All right, so I don't care. They can try everything. All right, because I'm now in a position where I'm blessed enough to allow that. Right, for me, sports had to be how I got to school. Right, I knew my parents couldn't afford any 4-year. Right, like I remember, like, you talking about 2007, 2008 when everything was going bad as far as the market, and so I was like, I'm not sacrificing you all's house to go to college, right? And I don't even know what I want to do yet, right? So, sports had to get me there, right? Like, I was like, all right, it's a scholarship or nothing. For them, though, you know, I'm in a position where I am blessed enough to allow them to try different things. And so I'm going to open the door for whatever they want, right? Like, if my youngest wants to be a piano player, classical music, then I'm going to put every dime I got into making sure his dream comes true, right? And that's just how I feel, right? I'm obviously, if they do decide to play sports, I'm all in, right? Like,
of course.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to make dad happy, you play sports. But and truthfully, like, I don't want to limit them to anything, especially when I've seen, like, the dark side of sports, like when it's over.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
So, or like the kids that get pushed so hard by mom and dad that they just like end up hating the sport or hating what it is that they're doing, and it's like they're stuck doing that because of whatever situation that they're in for school.
That's all they
and
know.
Stuff like that.
Yeah,
it is definitely really sad to see that. So I'm glad to hear that's your approach, and I think a lot of parents should take that approach, you know, and really allow them to like try whatever it is that they want to do and support. I know that's how my dad was. My dad always told me, he's like, hey, if whatever you want to do, I will support you. Because my parents, I think my dad wanted to be like a musician.
Okay.
And my grandpa basically told him, like, no, you're just a kid from Honduras. Like, you're never going to be a musician. I'm not buying you a guitar. And I remember, like, my dad telling me, he's like, that was like the moment where I was like, yeah, I need to leave. Like, I'm leaving Honduras and I'm going to the United States. And my dad came over here when he was like 14 years old.
Wow.
Like, by himself. Didn't even speak English. And just learned how to speak English when he was here. But in turn from that, he's given me his utmost support in pretty much doing anything that I wanted to do.
Yeah. How'd you get into wrestling, though? I heard you say.
Yeah, so my uncles my uncles are, let's see, 31 and 32.
Okay.
So they're about 6 years older than me, 6 and 7 years older than me. And growing up at my grandma's house, there was a lot of WWE being seen, and
Okay.
I was always the test dummy for them. They would practice the Batista bombs and the suplexes on me and stuff like that. But my uncle, he from watching WWE decided to do wrestling in high school or middle school and high school, and he ended up being a 2-time county champ in Long Island. I remember seeing a picture of my uncle on the podium on like first place winning counties, and I was like 14 or like 12 or something like that at the time, and I was like, damn, that's really cool, I could see myself like being in those shoes one day. And so in 7th grade, me and my neighbor next door, we were like, you want to do wrestling? And they were like, yeah, let's try it out, was not gifted or naturally talented at that at all. I was not good in 7th grade when I first started. I wrestled 2 matches the whole year. I gassed out on both matches and lost them both. But luckily I stuck with it. 8th grade, I think I probably hit puberty a little bit more, and I started getting I was like, I'm not gonna let a stupid 7th grader beat me, So I think I got a little bit more aggressive. I got better, and then I just kind of kept at it until senior year, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
I ended up winning counties my senior year. Almost won it my junior year.
Nice.
Lost. I got second, which still to this day
Still burns. All right.
Still bothers me.
Oh, I know
but
it.
I will say, that loss was probably one of the biggest teaching lessons for me, because I lost, and I was so heartbroken that I lost, and I was really it just shattered my own self-perception. I was like, I'm terrible at everything that I do. I can't even win, completely overkill on myself, you know how we get into our own heads and stuff like that. But I made it my mission the next year. I was like, I am not going to lose this year. And I went to wrestling. I went to wrestling clubs. My dad got me a car for $600, 1999 Nissan Altima.
Nice.
The bumper fell off 15 times whenever I was driving it. But I would drive myself to wrestling practices. I remember going to practice on Christmas Eve, Christmas, the day after Christmas, New Year's. Every single day I could go, I went because I didn't want to lose, and I ended up winning. And so that was when I kind of realized that you have to be willing to put in the work that others aren't. And that's where I got the mindset of working crazy hours and not thinking that it's for nothing. I know that I'm outworking my competition. I know that I'm putting in the work that the others aren't, and that's what separates me from the others. I think that really is a very critical thing that people have to have for success. You got to be able to do things that make you uncomfortable. I didn't want to go to practice on Christmas. I didn't want to go to practice on Christmas Eve, and I almost talked myself out of it. But I remember I was like, I gotta just go. And after I went, I didn't even feel. I was happy that I went, and I felt great. And that teaching lesson from putting in those days and then winning, biggest literally you said, the biggest instillment of work ethic that I carry with me into business to this day.
Yeah, man, I think it comes from that. I think people get complacent with a little bit of result.
Yeah.
Right? And it happens everywhere. It happens in business. It happens in their personal lives. It happens in their content journey, right? You get your first 100K video, and you're complacent, and you don't think, I got to make my next one better, right? Where there are others that are wired because we have felt what it's like to lose or fell down. Absolutely. That's no, I'm going to get better every single one, right? And that's what you're describing, right? It's one of those moments for me when I could remember every loss I've had when it comes to the sport, when it comes to the careers. I can remember them and vividly have that vision in my brain, and it just fuels the fire, right? I don't ever want to feel that again.
Exactly.
Right? And so I'm going to do what I have to make sure that I don't feel that again,
Yeah, I mean, I think losing is one of the worst possible feelings that a human can experience, especially if it's at a high level, But in those moments, we also learn and take away some of the greatest lessons that we'll ever get, and it's only through that pain of loss, you know. And so
Yeah.
I think it's so important for you to put yourself in those situations, experience the losses, take them with, you know, in stride, and then take action to make sure it doesn't happen again.
No, exactly.
You know,
Exactly. How much has your journey and what you have kind of, you know, experienced through life play a part in how your companies ran?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So my biggest correlation, I'd say, from life experience into business is my 6 years that I spent in the Navy, by far. You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but the military is actually a business, and it's the business of war, right?
Yeah.
So if you really look at what the military does, it takes people from off the street, right, just like nobodies basically, and they turn them into doctors, they turn them into pilots, and they turn them into, you know, gunners, and they turn them into, you know, rescue swimmers or whatever it may be. You know, there's a myriad of different jobs, but they have, and it's not the commanding officer that's teaching you how to do this, right?
Yeah.
It's instructors that were taught through SOPs, and they're instructed through, you know, very detailed, you know, guided documentation basically. And there's also disciplinary systems that they have in place. You know, you're late to muster, you're going to have a counseling chit. You know, we're going to sit down and talk about it first. If you do it again, then we're going to write it, you know, make a written form.
Yeah.
You do it a third time, then you're getting like actually disciplined. You know, you're going to go to court martial or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying I do that in my business, but I do take some of those aspects, like the SOPs, the you know, like the what do you call it, like manuals, instruction manuals, and just that attention to detail. I mean, when I was going through like rescue swimmer like school, or I guess whenever, like not the actual like training part of it, but it's like when you're learning how to be in the back of a helicopter, you know, you have to know exactly like you have to memorize certain checklist items, because if you're in an event where you have to save somebody's life with a rescue hook, or you know, the aircraft is having issues, you got to be able to memorize these things, because it's not only just your life, but it's also the lives of the pilots, your other crew members. And so I took a lot of that, you know, granular detail of looking at specific things, and I apply it to pretty much like a product, you know what I mean? Like, you know, the SKUs, the barcodes, the you know, if it's a machine assembly, you know, we have a machine assembly checklist, a shipping checklist, we have delivery checklists. Like, there's a lot of things that I just literally like took from this huge enterprise that I was working for 6 years. That was in a different industry, but I just took pretty much everything that I was put through, and I just try to implement it into the business.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think a lot of people don't realize like how much you could really take away from a military experience. And you know, if you're a veteran, like you have more knowledge than you think. You know, you really have experience of how a large enterprise operates. And if you really think about it, you could definitely figure out how to implement those in many different ways.
Into the same business.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, I asked that because I was curious on like you have a great story to tell, right?
Thank you.
And so you've kind of transitioned from one thing to the next, and now you're into the gym ownership, supplier.
Yeah.
How do you describe that?
I call it like the art of gym building. You know, I have basically studied and kind of created a new way of building gyms to basically just make it easier for people to open up a gym. You know, it's just, I think it's very difficult to open up a gym these days, because there's really not a lot of information online. Like, if you Google how to open up a gym, you'll find YouTube videos of how to not, like, why you shouldn't open up a gym. Like, that's like the top one, and you're like, oh, okay, that's probably not good for the industry that I'm in. But obviously it's like, you know, it's a video to just tell you how hard it is to actually own a gym, which it is really hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I would just say, like, it's basically how to create a gym, and then like we're also, a second piece of that is like we're designing gym equipment too. You know, we're doing two like main different operations. You know, it's like, how can we R&D better machines? How can we package them smaller? How can we, you know, get them to our customers for a lower cost, but still have unique designs? Is so important. I don't copy anybody's stuff. I always make new stuff. I don't want to be that brand that's just like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And you know, and then the same thing with the gym building side of it. I just took all the aspects of, you know, how we apply to R&D to creating gyms.
Yeah, I asked that because I was curious. Like, I know for me in the media space, I'm constantly watching what other people are doing.
Right.
Right? Like, I look at it myself as like, we're competitors, but we can learn from each other. So it's not like I'm a competitor to take your client. I'm more of a competitor to go like, all right, what are they doing over there that's working?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So that I can help whoever I'm trying to help.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all fighting for each other's attention. Right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's you're trying to get customers to sign up for Pineda Media, or it's me trying to get a gym owner to buy a gym package.
Right.
It's still just attention that we're looking. You know, everybody is just looking for other people's attention now.
Yeah. Who would you say though gives you like, or like maybe it's a gym, maybe it's a supplier that you're like, okay, I'm paying close attention to what they're doing because, like myself, they're an innovator in this space, and I want to be competing and doing the things that the best are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, you know, we're primarily just looking at like, you know, probably just the biggest companies in the industry right now that have been around for the longest period of time. Like, you know, the brands that you see at all the big box gyms like Life Fitness, Hammer Strength, Cybex, Matrix. You know, I do have like kind of like a mentor in the industry that kind of took me underneath his wing early on.
Nice.
He works for a really big remanufacturing gym equipment company. So they like basically have contracts with like Planet Fitness and all those big box gyms to buy out all of their used stuff after every 3 years.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So every 3 years they're just basically cycling out all the used stuff, bringing in new. They take the used stuff, remanufacture it, or just sell it as is.
Gotcha.
But they have a 150,000 square foot warehouse in LA. It's like the craziest thing you've ever seen.
Wow.
I mean, it's like pallet racking, like 30 feet high,
Yeah.
just full of treadmills, ellipticals, bikes. Like, and it's just like it takes you 20 minutes to walk across the warehouse, and it's just packed full of gym equipment. That was like one of the moments where I like realized how big this industry really was. You know, it was like during COVID, I was just there to like buy some equipment, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane.
Yeah.
You know, and it really opened up my eyes. And then he was like really cool about like just answering like really in-depth questions about like the industry and stuff like that. And you know, it's kind of weird, but there was like when we were there, they had like it was we were the only ones there, and there was like a pipe that like just burst, like a gushing like 100 gallons a minute type of burst.
No way.
And it was just me, my buddy that was also in the Navy with me, and this guy, his name's Todd. And I remember like me and my buddy were like, all right, let's go, you know, let's get this taken
spring
care
into
of.
action right away,
exactly.
right? Just clicked on.
Boom, 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 boom. You know, like he's like, all right, the water shut off's over there. Like, you know, I'll go grab this, and then like, and he was just kind of like, he just was like, he's kind of older. He was just like, just standing there. He's like, oh, I need to call somebody. You know, we're like, no, just like let's do this.
Yeah.
So we ended up like shutting off this like huge like water burst in his warehouse for him, and like I think that ended up kind of just like making us get even closer, like, you know, because he was like, oh man, you guys like, you know, saved me from having to deal with all this stuff, you know.
Yeah, I can tell you the easiest way to make friends is to save the person money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely.
like you figure out how to save a company or, you know, anybody. Like you figure out how to save them some money, they're gonna probably draw closer to you, right? Like that's just how it goes. No, that's awesome, man. Like it's funny that it ended up being water too. You being in the Navy, like it all kind of tied together. That type of stuff always to me is like divine, bro. Like I get to develop a relationship on something that we could connect on outside of what our focus is.
Absolutely.
Right, and so that's awesome, dude. Yeah, I mean, speak a little bit to the importance of having mentors, right? Like I know for me, mentors are extremely important in my life as I got older. Right, younger I was kind of like, all right, you know everything.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to hear, you know, that you're doing something wrong, right? Like you're not, you know, you got too much pride for that just yet. But now I look to mentors not only for like life lessons, but also for just, you know, I get encouraged when I see them win too, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay, like they're still winning even after they've had success. And so I get encouraged by seeing that, and I can't wait to hear how they kind of what their perception of the situation is. So tell me how, having mentors has impacted your career.
Yeah, absolutely. So, mentorship for me started as early as like middle school, with like, again, going back to sports, going back to, wrestling, having the coaches there kind of guiding you through how to get better at little techniques and things like that. And then in the Navy, I had tons of mentors in the military. I've met some amazing pilots, really smart dudes, and like just genuinely some of the greatest people that, no matter their rank, they would sit down and like have an honest and open, candid conversation with you, and just having that that like kind of sounding board to just bounce ideas off of, or get suggestions off of. It's like irreplaceable, I guess. You have to have somebody there to kind of help guide you, that's been there before, that's done it before and has a little bit more experience,
made the mistakes that you don't want to make, right?
Exactly,
No, for sure.
And that's kind of how Todd has been a player, a helpful player for me, is like, when we're talking about negotiating gym deals, I'm like, hey man, have you ever had this before? Have you ever had a customer like ask you like, can you do this type of payment, or can you do this type of setup? Like, what do you think about that? Or like, hey man, I'm thinking about launching this new like design for this leg press. Like, do you think like people would like this? And he'll be like, nah, I think there's too many of those already. Like, you should really think about maybe trying to do this to make it, Like just having like somebody who's got that background experience and just being there to back you up,
Yeah, I mean, mentorship reminds me of how important communication is. All right. And so for me, like, I always think like communication as like the one gift God gave us to oneness. Right. It's the only way that me and you can have a partnership one-on-one is by the communication
Absolutely.
piece. Right. So usually, the better you are at communicating, the more relationships you have, the more successful you become. Right. And it's not necessarily just me communicating to you, but me also communicating to my audience.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I'm taking it there because before we met, you were doing some stuff on social media already, right, and having some success. Right. And then when you came on, I can tell that you were more passionate about your brand growing than actual like social media success. Right. Fame wasn't a thing for you. Right. I actually you wanted to see the brand grow. Right. So why podcasting? Why Instagram? Tell me a little bit about your motivation behind, joining Wealthy Creator and learning more about it.
Yeah. I mean, it really just stems down to like, I genuinely think I can help a lot of people with the gym building process, and not only that, but also just the equipment side of it too. I just think our products are really that good, like not in a conceited way at all. It's just like, I think that
confidence.
I just think the products are better than what's out there in the marketplace already. And I feel like the more people that can just hear what I'm trying to say, hear what I'm trying to do, like every dollar that gets spent into my company goes back into designing new equipment, back into developing better processes and better systems. Like, I'm a very simple person. I don't need I drive a Toyota Corolla. It's paid off. I'm going to drive that thing till it breaks. And, I don't need fancy clothes or anything like that. I really just genuinely care about the industry, and I see a lack of innovation there,
Yeah.
And so for me, it's a challenge because it was definitely outside my comfort zone, but it's also a mixture of like some passion too, because I have always been interested in photography and like, taking pictures, not so much the video side, but now that, I've gotten in front of the camera a few times, I've filmed a lot, videography is also becoming a part of the passion as well. And so it's kind of full circle, It's a mixture of wanting to spread the message that I have and also wanting to just, have something out there for people to look at and see what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, man, I look at it the same way, right? Like I see individuals like you, individuals like myself that are oftentimes not necessarily in front of the camera, but doing a lot of the work, right? And then I think to myself, we're doing a disservice for the individual that's trying to come up behind us by not sharing our information.
Yeah.
And so social media just makes that easy, right? Like if I want to tell a story, I can tell a story, right? Whether, 2 2 people see it or 1,000 people
Right.
see it, somebody gets to see it, and hopefully they can pull something from it, right? And so it's like I see the same thing with almost all of our creators, right? Like they come in and they're like, I don't know how I'm an authority in this space just yet, or I don't know if I'm an expert or a guru or whatever. And I'm like, well, what experiences do you have? And they list off all these experiences, right? We just sat and talked for 40 minutes of just experiences, right?
Right.
Those are relatable. There's things that you're doing that are attainable for others that they just don't know it yet. A little motivation, right? Like I look at it. It's funny because I heard somebody the other day. I was listening to a podcast and they were like, the fastest sprinter in the world didn't know how fast they can go until they saw somebody else do it.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Like you're not trying to beat a record until you know the record exists.
Exactly.
All right. And so I was like, yeah, like that clicked for me because I was like, yeah, I can be the best, but I don't even know what the best is. So all I can do is compete with myself at a certain point, right? Like, and so paying attention and doing all these other things, right? Like, and then I got to share it, right? Because sharing it may make you better than me, but now I got something to go towards. Now I got something to move towards. And so it's like, I'm really believe that we do a disservice by not giving up the information, right? Like not sharing our stories and our testimonies.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the strategy based on the content that we've made for Mayhem is value based. It's all about just giving the knowledge that I've gained from the experiences of building gyms all over the world to people. Like my competitors can watch my videos and steal all the ideas that I have and take the experiences that I'm sharing and like use it with their customers, but I don't care because at the end of the day, it'll help everybody out more. And if that's the case where everybody's doing what I'm doing, then we just got to get better. It's like Elon Musk, right? Like he says patents are for the weak. He says patents are cancer to society.
Yeah.
He thinks that Tesla doesn't really patent too much things. Like it's very little. They actually give away their information because he believes that even if somebody copies what he's doing, by the time they copy it, they're going to have something better.
Right.
And so like that's the kind of the approach that I have with it too, is just like I'll give away my patents or give away all my information because by the time you copy it or by the time you implement it, I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah, I'm on to the next thing for sure.
So that's kind of the approach that I took with it all. So all right, guys. So if you guys like content like this, you guys want to see more guests hop on our podcast, let us know who you want to see next. We'll try to get them on here. Let us know what topics you want us to cover on the next podcast, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can find us everywhere you can stream podcasts, and we hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.